Well, I think this is the flip side of what we were talking about how China is terrified of the genocide label. Coming up in July, it's the 100-year anniversary of the Communist Party. And so there is this massive push to make sure the people of China aren't having any wrong thoughts about the party. They're asking people to report friends and family that make, illegal or harmful comments on history. At the end of last year, Xi Jinping made this speech about how they need to really boost youth patriotism. Creepy enough. And now there's been these new anti-spying, anti-espionage regulations targeting hostile foreign forces and whatever. And I think the real point of this is to make sure Chinese people don't have any access to foreigners. So they can't hear any of these messages. They don't want Chinese people leaving China and then hearing from a friendly YouTube show that, China is using gang rape as a form of torture.
Well, I mean, there's certain Westerners it's okay to,
Yeah,
like those YouTube channels based in China where everything's fine.
Yeah, but part of these regulations are basically it applies to any kind of group in China.
Mm-hmm.
And so even it seems like even universities or private companies, and so part of the regulations basically require debriefing of people after they go abroad to come back and kind of talk about everyone they've met.
Yeah, and we'll have to see exactly how these are implemented, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting because this is not the first time. Do you guys remember that cartoon about the white guy named David?
Yeah,
who who's dating this Chinese girl and took advantage of her innocence to get some sensitive information from her about her, she was working for some company. Yeah, it was just this comic strip about how dangerous it is to talk to foreigners who may be trying to get you to accidentally spy for them or whatever.
Wait, so is this the thing where the Chinese Communist Party accuses other people of doing the things that the Chinese Communist Party is actually doing?
Exactly. Global Times just put out a big piece about how hostile foreign forces will target young people or young active internet users or college students and use money or beauty to influence them and send them down the wrong path.
My favorite example that Global Times had there was of some guy who got a journalism student who got an internship with a foreign media.
Yeah, he was a journalism student.
Yeah, in China, and got an internship in China with foreign media and
a major Western
and a lot
media
of
company.
A lot of Chinese staff who work for these Western media companies are they're at a much higher risk than the Western staff at those media companies.
Yeah, and so he was arrested. This 20-year-old guy was arrested in 2019 for meeting with here I have it here. Meeting more than a dozen officials of a Western country, 20 hostile foreign groups, providing evidence that could be used to stigmatize China. And so the point is that we made in the episode was that it sounds like this journalism student was doing journalism.
Yeah. But because a lot of these Chinese workers for these media companies, they can't be classified as journalists technically. They have to be news assistants or something. So there have been multiple cases in the last year of people being arrested, the news assistants who work for these media companies. So there's definitely a crackdown going on.
Yeah, and I think it is because the message is kind of getting out about the Chinese Communist Party slowly in the West because there's still many politicians and the business sector that really do not want us talking about China as a country that commits genocide because it'll damage the politicians' ability to make the deals they want to make because they're all connected to the various business sectors as well. And then the Wall Street who, just want to, or NBA, Mark Cuban, there are customers.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, it might not be a direct bribe or something like that, right? But there's often some type of self-interest involved among the people who are saying things like, well, it's not really genocide, or, we shouldn't be using that word. Yeah.
Right. And one of the challenges is that because over the last 20 plus years, Western companies have become so integrated with the China market that like basically I can hardly imagine any billionaire in the world who doesn't have some current or former connection to the China market, right? It's very hard to be a billionaire and not have some connection to China. And so when you have the elite of the elite who all have their fingers in this to some degree, is just like to get them to back off and be like, well, actually, we need to stop the Chinese Communist Party, or we need to criticize them for, using gang rape as a form of torture. You just can't. It's just very difficult to get people to change their view on this. And if they don't think China has personally screwed them, then they're just not going to be super interested in it. And I think a lot of them prefer to just not touch the subject. But like this is a problem when you have so much policy and politics influenced by a small number of people.
What? And really, like this, you make a good point, Matt, that like, if Western businesses actually, if they understood what the Chinese Communist Party was, they want to make money in China. They want to get the China market, blah, blah, blah. If they actually understood what was happening, it would actually be more beneficial to these companies. Take Tesla as an example, which is just the most recent of a long string of companies trying to get into the China market. When Tesla first went into China, state-run media was like praising them, like, great, Tesla's great. And now they're being ruthlessly attacked in Chinese social media, on Chinese state-run media, for being, arrogant, all kinds of rumors about their cars being dangerous or unsafe.
They're letting these kind of rumors spread organically on Chinese social media.
There were protests at the Shanghai Auto Show against Tesla, and people talked about that online. That doesn't happen in China unless it's state-backed.
Yeah. And so, like, it just goes to show you that very smart people like Elon Musk can be so, like, wear these, like, rose-colored
The word
glasses.
is stupid.
The word's stupid.
They're stupid.
Smart people can be so stupid. And, I mean, obviously we were, warning Tesla years ago, like, don't go into the China market. It's a bad idea. You're going to get screwed. And this is what always happens is that the Chinese Communist Party wants these Western companies to come in, bring in their expertise, create factories, and then their technology is either transferred through joint ventures or it's just stolen. And the people who work at those factories learn how to do that work. And then inevitably, what we're going to see is in China is the electric vehicle market and the battery market that Tesla is dominating. These are going to be exploited by Chinese homegrown companies. So
that will use ethnic slave labor to make stuff cheaper.
Right. And so I don't think we've seen this quite yet, but I bet you anything we're going to see this over the next 3 to 4 years is that the market that Tesla has now in the US, maybe not cars, but definitely batteries and other like those kind of components are going to increasingly come from China. And a big part of that will be technology based on what was taken from Tesla. And because that's what happened with solar panels. That's what happened with windmills, right? It's going to happen. And Tesla has given up their intellectual property willingly or unwillingly. And then it's just going to be sold right back to Americans at a cheaper rate. So, of course, the average American consumer who doesn't want to have to think about all this, connections is happy.
Well, I mean, also, it's just often really hard to find out whether things are made in China, right?
Oh, yeah. No, that's true.
But this is a situation where if Elon Musk had said, well, let's see, China is a country that uses gang rape as torture. Is there a possibility that they might not be nice to me?
No, because he's wealthy and he was invited by the Chinese Communist Party to come.
It's because they don't look at it that way. They don't look at like, oh, yeah, they're committing genocide.
Well, I mean,
But surely they won't lie to me, a charismatic billionaire.
Well, I think the thing though is like when Tesla went into China, right? Like at the time, it wasn't as clear what was happening in Xinjiang. Nobody was really talking about what was happening to Falun Gong. Like
It wasn't clear if you've been barely paying attention.
well,
If
I mean,
you've
I
been
think
watching
even if
China
you're a
Uncensored, Shelley.
fairly, I think even if you're a fairly like worldly person, like I just did an interview last week with Al Jazeera, and about
Congratulations, by the way.
thanks. It was about the Xinjiang. I think they just asked me because they can't find enough people to talk about it.
Hmm.
But it was about like the propaganda campaign that the Chinese Communist Party is doing about Xinjiang right now, and they had basically hired because Al Jazeera is not based in New York City. They had like hired a producer to kind of be the person to like ask
Someone
me the
local.
questions, like a local producer to ask me the questions. And he was a fairly like worldly person, but like I definitely freaked him out. Like I scared that guy by talking about everything that the Chinese Communist Party is doing. Talking about like their propaganda, talking about how they're trying to use that to counter this genocide stuff. Like
Specifically organ harvesting.
yeah,
too.
and I talked about organ harvesting, and like it just like I could just see his like increasingly shell-shocked expression because this is not stuff that comes through.
Well, so that was what surprised me when I made like my tweet about China being a country that uses gang rape as torture. People were having emotional reactions because like they couldn't deal with it because it's not how they think about China. And so if this were the reality, if the average person knew this stuff, then it's not like Elon Musk could be like, well, I'll lie to myself in some ways and like still try and go into the China market. It would be impossible because no one would accept that these foreign companies are going into China because the people would be like, it's not okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is why they're fighting the genocide label so hard, is because the Chinese Communist Party cannot let themselves become North Korea.
It's why the Olympics are so important.
Oh, yeah.
The Beijing 2008 Olympics, that's a big reason why people don't think about the Chinese Communist Party the way they should. And now they're really trying to make sure this 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics also goes off without a hitch because they want to have the same soft power effect that the 2008 Olympics.
Well,
I mean-
joke's on the CCP because no one watches the Winter Olympics.
This is true.
I mean, curling doesn't have quite the same, I mean,
Cachet is the 100-meter dash.
right? Or I mean, I guess you do have like figure skating, right?
Well, there's
Figure
the one
skating
where
and
people do watch the Winter
There
Olympics.
is
yeah.
one game where they like ski down a slope and then pull out a gun and shoot something. That's pretty cool. I don't know what
Yeah.
that's called.
I can't remember the name right now
It's
either.
called ski and shoot.
No,
Skirball.
it is not.
Or something.
At any rate, I think that the point about the Olympics is good, and you had a guest, Chris Fenton, on China Uncensored last week,
Mhm.
who talked about the importance of using that as a form of leverage to get the Chinese Communist Party to make certain concessions, whether it's human rights or political concessions or Hong Kong stuff. And I hope that Western governments listen to what Chris Fenton said.
Well, they will listen to what the people say. And this is why it needs to get into the general public consciousness. What kind consciousness is that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
The general public consciousness about what the Chinese Communist Party is.
And that's why the general public needs to watch China Unscripted
And China Uncensored.
and China Uncensored.
I think we have more of a chance with China Uncensored.
Well, anyway, you never know. This episode could go viral and get like 1 million views.